life is long but incredibly short at the same time. And I think that when you get to the end of your life, at whatever point it happens, you want to feel like it had meaning, and not just because you climbed a ladder or acquired accolades, but because you made a difference in the world to the people around you.
Welcome to the DreamDivers podcast. This is the coaching show that is designed to help people just like you, people who know in their hearts that they were made to do something bigger, more purposeful, and legendary with their lives to impact the world. My name is Ira Davis, the Chief Dream Diver, and I am your dream development coach. What's up, Dream Divers? Today on the podcast, we have my new friend, Doniece. Doniece Sandoval is the founder of Lava Mae, a nonprofit organization that began by converting public transportation buses into bathrooms on wheels to deliver hygiene and to reconnect people who are experiencing homelessness with their dignity. In the past 5 years since launching its service, Lava Mae has served over 19,000 Californians and is scaling by growing the model rather than the organization. To date, the Lava Mae organization has inspired and mentored or directly trained over 136 communities seeking to launch mobile hygiene. Doniece was born and raised in South Texas, but has made a home in San Francisco for the last 2 decades. Her accolades include things like the 2019 Social Entrepreneur in Residence at Stanford Fellow, 2019 Jefferson Award winner, 2018 Global Fund Fellow, 2017 CNN Hero, 2016 Kind Person Awardee, and the 2015 Mother of Innovation. But Doniece says her most proudest moment is being bestowed the title of homeless superhero by her 12-year-old daughter. Doniece, welcome to the Dream Divers podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I'm reading your bio here, and I'm like, I need to catch up. Now, and I know it's not about the accolades, right? But when you read these things that you have accomplished, how does that make you feel about the journey that you have started?
It's sort of a mixed bag. Definitely there's a sense of pride, but what comes along with that also is, these recognize me, and this has been a team effort. Both the people that work with me at Lava Mae, partners that have made this possible, donors who fund this and believe in it. And so it's kind of weird when the focus just is on me. The other part of it is that there's so much left to do that it feels like everything is a bit premature. So does that make sense?
No,
it's a little bit of a lot of things.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, those of us who are on a quest to do purpose-driven work in the world, there's really no such thing as smelling your roses, because it's like, I have more to do. Like, smelling your roses is like, we do that another time. But right now, there's other people that need our help. So we don't really have time to count the accolades. But I'm extremely happy to have you on the show. We kind of talked before we started filming, and I've been following your work on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. And I know a lot of people who've actually come out to help at your events. And, what you're doing in everywhere that you are. You're in LA, you're in San Francisco, I believe you're in New York and some other places. Your footprint has been just massive on what you've been able to do. So tell us a little bit about the Lava Mae organization, the purpose behind it, and a little bit about what you guys have accomplished with your purpose-driven business.
Sure. I think at the heart of things, when I first started and I found out that there was such a massive lack of access to showers and toilets for people who were unhoused, it really became about connecting people with a basic human right. Every single human being on this planet should be able to access water and sanitation. And yet, sadly, even in this first world country, it's just not true. And when you think about what these very intimate and yet vital services do for you, you don't even think about your service if you're housed. you just take for granted the fact that you can take a shower when you want to or need to, or go to the bathroom in the middle of the night if you wake up. But for people who can't, it robs you of not only just basic needs and ability to fill them, but of your dignity, right? To have to use the bathroom on the street because there aren't enough toilets, to go days, weeks, sometimes even months without taking a shower, it strips you of human dignity. And I wanted to be able to create a bridge to people and create access to something so fundamental and so vital to our sense of self-worth. And that's what sort of drove me to initially start this idea of hygiene on wheels for people. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And what are some of the things that have accomplished with Lava Mae? I've seen the videos, I've seen some of the articles. Maybe not the high level accolades from the press, but what have you been able to accomplish in the communities themselves that you're proud of?
So I think it kind of boils down to a couple of things. The first is obviously we're meeting people where they are by taking this service to them where they're located on the street, which I think is profound and really beautiful. We're building relationships with them. And we learned very early on that the way that you treat people, the way you serve them is actually almost more important than whatever service it is that you're bringing to them. So we call what we do radical hospitality. It's this idea of the highest in me recognizes and honors the highest in you. And, it's about creating a sense of connection and belonging. And, we call the people we serve our guests. We talk about people as our unhoused neighbors, which we think is so important. And we're also creating opportunities for the broader community, both through volunteer opportunities and just even witnessing our work as they pass us on the street, to have transformative experiences, right? Because there's all these myths about who unhoused people are, why they've become unhoused, and they're wrong. And so when people come out and spend time with us and work with us shoulder to shoulder and get to know their unhoused neighbors, it completely changes their understanding of the circumstances and situations. And it gets them to want to work for change, right? So we feel like we do a lot of what we call the witness effect, where people come out and they see what's happening and it forever alters them. And then they go off and create change themselves.
No, that first of all, radical hospitality. That is a phenomenal phrase. The way you said it and explained it, I feel like that's tattooed on your spirit, and you wear that proudly, and your team wears that proudly. Talk about how that phrase has transformed how people show up to serve. Like maybe they show up and say, "Hey, I want to give, I want to help," but when you explain to them this prerequisite for excellence, how does that change how they show up and serve in a way that's just truly they get the culture of Lava Mae?
Yeah. I think some of it is a little bit like osmosis in a way, right? Because my team, they live and breathe this so beautifully, even when they're setting, boundaries for people about, how we behave together. It is so infectious. And it is really about all the superficial trappings that we identify with or judgments we make about people based on race or culture or level of wealth or education. It's all just noise, really, because at the core, what radical hospitality says that you and I and everyone else share the same, very similar hopes and dreams and even fears, right? We all want to be seen and accepted for who we are as individuals. We all want to feel safe. We all want to have a sense of connection and belonging because it's vital. It's just part of our human DNA to exist in community like that. And so I think when people come out and they think, okay, I'm following a set of instructions around this is how I greet people, this is how I sign them up, this is how I clean the shower, it changes for them, right? It's not transactional. It becomes very personal. And I think it really feeds them and their own need to be seen and to be valued in a way that it just is this kind of lovely love fest that feeds both and all parties who engage in this.
Yeah, no, That's phenomenal. I want, Dream Divers, if you're listening and if you're in the midst of creating your purpose driven business, one of the things that we're talking about right now is intentionally setting a culture of service, excellence, love, and compassion, which is really what you set out to do. And whether you're a nonprofit or for profit, you're not really selling what you're selling, right? You are selling everything from your inside to your outside, and that's what makes a purpose-driven business different from a regular business. Is because it's rooted in your emotions, it's rooted in your cause, it's rooted in your spirit. And so when you serve from the inside out, it translates into everything that you do, every part of what you do. I mean, would you agree,
Yes,
Doniece?
actually, I love that you said that because, one of the things when we started out was the focus was all on our guests and treating them at the highest level. And I think where we didn't really stop and think about it strategically was, how we were treating each other internally in the organization. And I think we always treated each other well, but we weren't recognizing that, when our teams go out on the street and they're delivering service, and more than that, they're building community with our unhoused neighbors and they're carrying their stories and a level of pain and everything else with them. It was like real radical hospitality to infuse the culture also means how are we supporting our team? How are we holding them up at the highest and enabling them to be recharged and refilled so that they can continue and deliver that on the street, right? Because you can't do that if you're not filling up your own well. And I felt, or we learned that it was really vital for us as an organization that radical hospitality started first with the internal team and how we were treating each other and setting up support systems to make it possible for people to take this to the street with them and serve our guests.
I love it. I love it. I can't wait to get into the backstory, but you know, for those of you who maybe don't know what Lava Mae is or what they do, I don't know how, right? Because they are phenomenal. But bring us into a Lava Mae event. What is the mission? What are we doing? What happens? How many organizations generally partner to make this happen? Just walk us through this amazing, expo of love.
Sure. It really did start, with a bus and transforming it into showers and toilets on wheels. So mobile hygiene was the root of who we were. And what it even to this day looks like is that we pick sites. Every city has its own number of service days, but we consistently show up to a site same day of the week, same hours of the day to provide service to, up to 40 or 45 guests who come and have built relationships with us. And so I'd say 60% of our guests are repeat users and 40% are new. And what we find with our guests who've been with us over a period of time, they actually come to hang out. It's where they feel seen, it's where they feel safe, it's where they feel community. And so in getting to know them better, one of the things that we were watching was that they were saying they were having to run to like 4 or 5 different locations to get basic needs met. And that just seemed crazy to me. It's like, why are we making it so hard for people to get the services they need so that they can move up and out of homelessness, and especially since that's what everybody says they want. So we launched our next program, which is called a pop-up care village. And I think that that is the ultimate manifestation of radical hospitality because we bring anywhere from 20 to 25, I think even now up to 28 other partners across the sectors to kind of do 3 things. The first is provide the restorative services, which are showers, haircuts, and clothes. And then the advancement services, which is everything from medical, dental, legal, employment. And then the last piece of this is to really wrap around a sense of community, right? So we provide a hot breakfast and a hot lunch. There's live music, there's often yoga, sometimes there's massage, there's art making. The idea is to celebrate us as a community, right? It's not just, oh, we're here serving people who are unhoused. It's us coming together to celebrate the power of human connection and bring services to people who don't easily access them in a very powerful way. Our guests have even called it like Burning Man for the unhoused, which I love.
Yeah, no, this, the whole idea, the whole concept of bringing in other vendors as partners in this labor of love. Not even a labor of love. It's just love, right?
Right.
In this, love event is phenomenal. And I've watched some of the videos. I've seen some of the clips, as I keep saying, and I see different vendors. I see different people who are just giving and serving and loving and hugging and smiling and just, giving of themselves freely. Did you expect when you started this that when you transition from the mobile unit to the pop up experience, did you expect people to really get on board and rally around this the way that you did, to really help? What was that
You
like?
know, I think I did, mostly because, we've always worked in partnership. And so I've seen, and even just talking to regular people in the community, there is a real desire to want to help. I think people are just confused or don't know where to start, right? And so there is a lot of animosity in almost every community you go to around the idea of homelessness. Some people are angry and resentful. Some people blame people who are unhoused for their circumstances. But I think the vast majority of people are truly compassionate and do want to help. They just don't know how. So when you say yes, when you say come and join us, and they're like, well, what can I do? I'm like, we can figure it out, right? What are you good at? Do you like to knit? Great. Come create a knitting circle so that people have an opportunity to bond together. Oh, you're an attorney. Oh my gosh. We have, so many guests who are getting citations for sit-lie laws and everything else. Come and help them figure out how to expunge their records so that they can access services again. So I think it's just really, the goal is you have to put your own personal and organizational agenda aside, right? It's not about Lava Mae, even though we're the one that lead and organize this program. It is really about creating community together, right? So if you come to a pop-up care village, you're not going to see the Lava Mae logo plastered everywhere. You're going to see that we give our partners an opportunity to shine and to really step forward and open themselves up to each other and to our guests who we're trying to serve. And I think that that's what makes a huge difference. And, I thought that, we would have lots of people saying yes, but the level of positive response has utterly taken my breath away.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you know, not everybody who says they want to help always really wants to help. And I can tell that the people that you attract to you are actually in this because they actually want to help, right? And you know, a question that I have for you is we have a lot of organizations who go overseas and do some amazing things, but you decided to stay here in the continental United States and to solve a problem that we're having at home. And I think that's really admirable because there's a lot of people who look over our homeland and go elsewhere. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what they've been called to. But the way that you have really attached yourself to what's happening here is phenomenal. So, I really want to take it back to the beginning. Where were you? How did this whole concept come about? Where were you when you figured out, what, Doniece? What I've been doing with my life is not what I'm supposed to be doing. It's time to make a transition. Like, take us back and tell us the story of what led up until you really stepping into what you knew you were called to do.
Yeah. So I was taking an intentional year off from work. My daughter was 5. It just seemed like a good time. I was also commuting down to San Jose, and kind of, as much as I loved the work that I was doing, I was really done with the commute. But I didn't know what I wanted to do next. And I just wanted, a year to kind of figure things out. And at that time, my neighborhood, which was then called the Western Addition in San Francisco, which was a very culturally diverse neighborhood. There were a lot of older African American families who'd been there for a long time. We had known them well. We chose this neighborhood deliberately because we are a mixed race family. I am Latina, my daughter is African American and Latina, and my husband is first generation American who's Albanian and Yugoslavian. And so we wanted to be in a place that looked like us, and we felt instantly at home in that neighborhood and got to know people really well. When the economy started to bounce back in San Francisco, which was actually pretty quickly, our neighborhood became very trendy, and its name changed from the Western Addition to NOPA, which is north of the Panhandle. And rentals started to skyrocket, and people began to sell their houses because they could make a lot of money. And so the neighborhood really began to change. And over a period of time, there were 3 older African American gentlemen, they were all in their 80s actually, that we knew really well. And they got evicted. And one by one took up residence in their cars and then had their cars repossessed and ended up living on the streets. And that was devastating to watch. And so we worked really hard to try and connect them with services, but the city has wait lists that are enormous. And we lost each and every one of them for a period of about a year and a half. And that was so devastating. And we couldn't understand why that was happening and how in a city with so much money that this could even be a problem. So we decided that we would begin to volunteer and we would identify some organizations to donate to, but it didn't feel like enough. And so I decided that I wanted to do more. And I'm an ideas person. So I just thought, truly I'll see something that can be done better or something that's not being done at all. And one day I literally passed a young woman on the street who was panhandling, and she was dirty and disheveled, and she just kept saying over and over again that she would never be clean. And it made me wonder what her chances were for getting physically clean, because every unhoused person I saw was struggling with hygiene. So I went home that night and I hopped on the computer and did the research, and I found out that in this crazy affluent city, there were 16 shower stalls and about as many toilets for the 7,500 people who were unhoused in this city. And that blew my mind. I mean, that's a problem you have in the third world, not in a city where there are more than 107 millionaires per square mile and another 60 billionaires on top of that. And maybe it's because I'm kind of a clean freak or something. I don't know. I just thought, okay, maybe this is something I can help figure out. And when I read in the Chronicle that SFMTA was going to be retiring their old diesel buses, I mean, I'm a marketing person. So the bells went off in my head as I thought, okay, what better thing to do than to take a muni bus, something people love to hate, and convert it and do something good with it. And so the idea for Lava Mae was born.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That is the epitome of being pushed into purpose. And that's something that I talk about a lot. There's some things that happen in our lives where it shifts us into right where we were always supposed to be. Like the surroundings and the things around us begin to shift and to morph, and the things that we used to see and we used to be comfortable with begin to change around us. And that begins to do something in our heart and in our spirit. And we wake up one day and we say, wait a minute, there's a problem that I am uniquely gifted to solve. How did this happen? Right?
And well, I don't know if I thought that I was uniquely gifted, but I knew that the problem was, I saw the problem and I saw a solution, and it would be pretty, I don't know, cowardice, reckless, whatever of me not to actually move forward and try and do something.
Yeah, no, and I love it. And it was those moments in your life that really ignited a whole nother, I believe, another level in you. I know in my life, that's what happened when I got pushed into a place where, I didn't have a choice. I had to decide what I would do with my life. And I recognized that the very thing that I was going through was the medicine that so many people in the world need. And once I figured it out, I was like, oh, I have a responsibility.
Right.
Like if I leave this earth and don't activate and do what I'm supposed to do, like Doniece, like I would be failing. And I feel like you felt the same way when all this stuff was happening around you, and you saw the young lady and the gentleman around you, were going through their thing. What did you feel within you? Like, was it something that said, Doniece, get in the game? Like, what was that talk that you have with yourself, or that whisper that you heard that says that you need to find a way to make this problem, to reduce it, to eliminate it, whatever. What was that moment for you?
Sure. I sort of believe that I follow an inner compass or voice or whatever it is. And I just kept bumping up against it over and over again. I mean, you can't be in San Francisco and not, encounter people who are unhoused everywhere you go. And so I'd walk in the city, I'd drive in the city, whatever it was, and my heart would break. Like I'd see someone and I would just think, not only could that just be me, it could be somebody I love, which would be even harder. And how is that possible? They're a human being and we've just thrown them away. And so everywhere I looked, this kept showing up in my field of vision, and my heart was breaking. And I knew that I couldn't live with myself if I didn't take action, right? The feeling deep within me, it was so visceral and so powerful that I knew that the only way I was going to find rest was as if I took some action, or it would haunt me forever.
Yeah. So here you are with this crazy idea, because I'm an ideas person too. I'm a visionary, right? So I have an idea for every idea, right? I can see a bowl of cereal and get an idea, right? So we could just play this game forever. So I know you kind of feel me there. What happened when you got this crazy idea and you started saying it out of your mouth to other people?
Yeah.
What was that like?
You know, I shared it with my husband first, obviously, and he's like, "Yeah, go for it. You should do it." And then I went to go meet the then czar of homelessness in the mayor's office. And I remember that conversation so clearly. Very polite man. Um, and as I told him about my idea, I could literally feel him rolling his eyes in the back of his head, even though he wasn't doing them, physically. And when I finished, he's like, "Okay, well, all right, if you're really serious about doing this, I have a list of people you need to go talk to." And that list was 50 people long. I think he was hoping that I would just give up. But over a period of quite a few months, I met with every single person on that list. And the response was absolutely the same. It was like, "Oh, kind of a crazy idea, but we so desperately need this. So if you go make it happen, we'll support you." And I think part of it for me was that I was going to talk to all of these people and they might say one of two other things, which was either that this was a great idea, but I knew nothing about working with people who were unhoused. So they were going to go do it and I could go help them raise money. Or they were going to say, "This is a really terrible idea and you should just let it go." But since neither of those things happened, instead, like I said, they said, "Yep, if you go make it happen, we'll support you." I had to move forward.
Wow. So big dream in what I call a dry place, right? No resources, no real help. You're at ground zero with a big dream. And now you have to figure out the distance between your dreams and your destiny, right? The distance between talking about it and doing it. Um, where do you go next? How do you make up the ground between, okay, I'm an ideas person, I'm a marketing person, I have a crazy dream, and making this thing come to life? What do you do?
Yeah, you just dive in, right? You start to think about, all right, if to get from A to Z, all these things have to happen. And you throw up a gigantic list and you try and make your way through it systematically. And it was hard. I mean, definitely the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life. And you can ask my husband, there were days where I'd walk in our front door and just lay down after I shut the door, like right there in the foyer. And he'd walk up and he'd say, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, I can't do this. I just can't do this. It's too much for me. I don't know how to do X. I don't know how to do Y. And he would just look at me and he'd say, "Yes, you will. You can and you will." And to have had his undying support, um, fed me, fueled me in a way that I don't know if I had just tried to do this, if I'd been all alone in the world and tried to do this, that I'd been able to do it in the same way. So his support was instrumental to Lava Mae happening.
So something you just said that your husband said to you, um, you can and you will. How many times since the inception of Lava Mae have you had to repeat that to yourself?
Oh my gosh, yes, multiple times in a year, right? I mean, every new enterprise, especially a nonprofit, because it's not like you're going to get an investor to give you millions of dollars because you're giving them a return on their investment, is always fraught with challenges. Startups, even when they're well funded, are challenging. There's so much you don't know, and so much you just have to decide, okay, I'm going to learn how to do this. And there would be, even as recently as earlier this year, there are points where you think, all right, 1 week, we have got this. We are like solid. And then literally a week or two later, you're thinking, oh my God, I don't know if we're going to make it, right? So it is a roller coaster of opportunities and challenges and fears and successes that, are all bundled in together as part of the experience.
Yeah, no, and I often tell the dream divers that I coach, I'm honest. I said a God-sized dream sounds real sexy. It really does. It sounds real great. But the truth of the matter is that if it's really a God-sized dream, it's going to give you anxiety and excitement all at the same time, right? Because if it was attainable within yourself, it wouldn't be a God-sized dream. It would be an Ira Davis thing. It would be a Doniece thing, right? But when you know you've been called to do something that's bigger than you, it's bigger than you, right? And that's why you have to literally do the work to become the person who is worthy of carrying such a huge dream. Because not everybody has the muscle, the stamina to do what most people will never do, and that's to create a legendary, purpose-driven business that will impact the world. Because 90% of what we do, right, Doniece, is never about us. Right. The benefit really never is really about us. It's all about the people who we've been called and assigned to help. And so that mantra of "you can and you will" is powerful. Because
it is, and
yeah.
oh, I was just going to say that, I think one of the other key ingredients, at least it's true for me, is that, I meet a lot of people and they want to do purpose-driven work, but they're not particularly passionate about an issue. They want to plug themselves in somewhere and then make something work. And I always tell people that would never work for me, right? Because over my lifetime, I've had many ideas for businesses. Maybe they weren't, and some of them were purpose-driven in a different way. But when I sat down and thought about the blood, sweat, and tears that it was going to take for me, I kind of went, nah, I don't want to work that hard, not for something like this. Whereas with Lava Mae and the work that we're doing, it was so visceral. I mean, in Silicon Valley, they talk about fire in the belly, but it has been fire in the belly for me. It is something that I can't walk away from, right? I think about the issue constantly. It's always with me in one form or another. And so I knew that I was driven to do this. So I think that what I tell people is find that thing, because there's something like that for every single person on this planet. And you might have to do some experimentation. But, if you have an opportunity to lead an organization that's working on climate change and you believe in all of that, but it's not like this crazy passionate thing for you, you have to ask yourself whether you're going to have what it takes to really do the work and elevate that organization to the level that that it could.
Yeah, no, and that's extremely powerful because I tell people all the time is I coach people who are doing extremely impactful things, but it's not what they were born to do. Mm. Right? One of my clients is a very wealthy guy who's making a lot of impact, and he's like, but I am unfulfilled because this has nothing to do with what my heart is connected to. Yes, it's impact. Yes, it's doing a great thing in the world, but it's not what I was put here to do. And that's what I want you guys to understand, that Doniece literally just said, there is a whole lot of impact to do in the globe, in the universe. But there's only one way that you were put here to do it. And you have to find your thing, your one thing. Because if you don't, if you're just in the business of being a great person, you are going to get frustrated. You're going to quit. You're going to throw in the towel because it's not connected to who you are. Right. And so, now when you were talking about being connected to what you do in a way that you could never throw in the towel, it looks, maybe I got this wrong, but it looked like you got a little bit emotional, because you were having a reflective moment, within yourself while you're speaking. Why is this truly connected to your heart so much? I know you were surrounded by a lot of people that you loved, and you saw a lot of things happen, but why is this truly connected to you in a way that it just pulls your heartstrings?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because at some point after I started the work, I remembered that my own family, when I was 16, came really close to being unhoused ourselves. And we had my grandmothers who didn't have very much, but gave everything that they could to keep a roof over our heads, and I think back to the young girl that I was then, and how at 16, and maybe I was young, but I think there were a lot of 16-year-olds that would have tried to do something to help their family. I mean, I could have gotten a part-time job. I could have done a paper route. I don't know. It didn't even occur to me then. And knowing that my family flirted so closely with that, and that I wasn't involved in trying to help in any way, caused me a great deal of shame, right? But also made me realize how vulnerable so many people are, right? How in our country these days, so many people live on the razor's edge, and it doesn't take much to fall into these circumstances. My daughter is also adopted through the foster care system, and has birth family that have grappled with being unhoused and all that's meant. And so when I look at people on the street or people that we're serving, one of the things that early on I felt was that not a single one of them when they were little ever dreamed of growing up to be unhoused. And yet that's their reality. And that knowledge, that understanding of them as little kids and their full potential and all of their beautiful dreams, but none of that coming to fruition, that breaks my heart. That just, rips out this big hole, and a desire to bring as much comfort and love to them as possible.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, let's just pause right there, and I want all of you who are listening or watching to really take that in. Big dreams have big roots, and what I mean by that is the work that you eventually come to find that you were put on this earth to do is always connected to an experience that you went through. The Doniece is serving the people who remind her of a very close, tragic, almost tragic situation that she almost went through, that also allowed her to be able to adopt a beautiful child whose family was experiencing something that was very similar to what she almost went through. So it's all connected. And one thing I know is that when you get called into a specific area, it's never outside of the scope of your own experience or pain. It really never is. And if it is, you are not being authentic to what you were being called to do, because you won't be the right person to lead Legendary because you've never experienced it or come close to it enough to be able to give your whole heart to it. You won't have the credibility within yourself and the authenticity to be the one to say, yep, I will radically serve these unhoused guests because I was this close when I was 16. And I never, ever want to walk past another person who is going through this and not give them my heart. And that's why I believe, Doniece, you have been able to just soar and really go leaps and leaps and hops over other people who were just helping unhoused people because it's a nice thing to do and because they're great people, but it's because you're connected, right? And DreamDivers, I want you to understand that there's something that you're connected to. that you are uniquely suited to serve in. And that's the area that literally you should be devoting your life to. And Doniece, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's absolutely true. I was able to take a workshop by this gentleman who's at Harvard. His name is Marshall Gantz. He was part of the civil rights movement, but he talks about this. He says, when you're leading an organization like this, it's doing important work, and you talk to leaders, so often they just tell you, oh, right, I watched my mother who was a great volunteer, or my family just really instilled, caring for other people deeply. He says that's fine. That might be something that you're telling yourself, but if you scratch the surface and really look inside you and cast your memory back to the things that happened to you, there's a pain point. You're doing this work because there's a pain point that you're ultimately solving for. And that really became true for me, right? I mean, in the fellow leaders that I see who have had that realization, you feel their connection to their cause, and as you say, the authenticity that they bring to this issue very profoundly. They're living and breathing, the value of what they're doing because they had their own experience or flirtation with it that is deeply personal.
Yeah. And when it's like that for you, when you're connected to the dream, when you're connected to your purpose, nobody can pay you enough to do what you do. Like, because Doniece, I spent all of my life being miserably out of place and feeling like I had no value, that I didn't bring anything to the world, and I felt like God skipped me when he was giving out purpose and dreams for so long. So when I found mine, and I now look back into the world and see that most people are living and dying without ever figuring out what they were born to do, like, I made this my life's work. And you can't, whether you pay me $1 million or nothing, I would do this in my sleep because it's connected to me, right? And I feel the same for you. Like, whether somebody paid you $1 million or not, which it's a nonprofit, right? So whether whether you got accolades or not, whether the vendor showed up or not, whether one person showed up or not, you would still be there because it's connected to you, right? Yeah. So, Doniece, what is one piece of advice that you would give to our listeners today who are being pushed into purpose, who know in their heart that they were made to create something legendary to impact the world? What would you say to that individual who was like, but this 9 to 5 is paying me well. But at the same time, I know that if I don't show up and produce miracles for the people, who I'm supposed to help, I'll be doing my life a disservice. What do you say to that person who's in between?
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is from Emerson, who said that the purpose of life is not to be happy. The purpose of life is to live life well, right? That have it matter that you actually lived and made a difference in the world with compassion and care. And I think one of the things that I've done since I was a little girl, but especially as I've gotten older, is to think about the decisions and the paths I take based on, let's say I have that moment right before I die when I can reflect on my life. And am I going to regret some private sector $1 million deal that I didn't close, or a fancy pair of shoes that I didn't get? Or am I going to regret that I didn't really give fully of myself and love as deeply as I could, right? In whatever form that gets translated to. And it was always very clear to me that it was going to be the latter. Life is long, but incredibly short at the same time. And I think that when you get to the end of your life, at whatever point it happens, you want to feel like it had meaning, and not just because you climbed a ladder or acquired accolades, but because you made a difference in the world to the people around you. And that to me is everything.
What would happen if Doniece didn't show up and create Lava Mae? What would have happened to all of the stories and the smiles and the hygiene and the psychological miracles and the breakthroughs that you have been able to perform through your purpose? Where would that have left everybody who needed you?
Well, maybe I like looked at the world through rose-colored glasses, but I like to think that if I had said no, right, when I got tapped for this, if I had said no, that the next person or the next person would have said yes, and that this would have happened somehow, right? I mean, I think, very few things happen in a vacuum. People have similar ideas at similar times and start competing companies or whatever. And so I believe that if it hadn't been me, it might have been somebody else, and maybe they wouldn't have done it the same way. Maybe the value and the secret sauce that Doniece brings to this is around the radical hospitality, which, to me is the highest good. But maybe mobile hygiene would have happened, so people would have gotten a measure of goodness and care in a way that would have still had value.
Yeah. But looking in your eyes and listening to you talk, I don't think you're the kind of person who wanted to leave that to chance. Right? Right? And that's how most of us get activated, because we double dutch and we dance, we tiptoe with the fact of, well, if I don't do it, maybe somebody will do it. But then the voice gets louder and we say, hey, do we want to leave the results to chance to somebody else, when we know that if we were to get uncomfortable enough, to stretch ourselves enough, that we could be the answer, the yes that changes the world. And Doniece, that is what you have done with your wonderful company. Now, where can all of the listeners go to find you, support you, to root you on, and to take part in the beautiful things that you're doing?
Thank you for asking. So I think going to our website is the easiest way to figure out how to get engaged with us. You can come volunteer, you can come see our work, or you can donate. And that's at Lava Mae, and that's LAVAMAE.org.
Awesome. And where are you? Where are the Lava Mae events happening around the country?
So primarily on the West Coast now. We're in Los Angeles, we're in San Francisco, Oakland, and Berkeley. However, we're also teaching communities around the world how to do the work we do. So you'll see sister organizations now all across America, and increasingly in Europe and South America as well.
Awesome. And what kind of vendors are you looking to partner with?
Oh gosh. Yeah. So it's anybody who is doing work like, do you have employment services? Do you train people? Do you have legal services, medical services, dental, mental health? Can you bring some sort of arts? Are you a food vendor and want to come and feed our people breakfast or lunch? So there's just about an array of everything. If you reached out and said, I have an idea, my guess is we'd say yes. So.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Doniece, here's what I will tell you, and I tell this to all my guests, that I come up with the name of the episodes while we're talking. And this episode is going to be called You Can and You Will.
Oh, I love it.
Make sure you relay that to your husband and let him know that his words to you have had a lasting impact on this episode and hopefully to our listeners. But last but not least, I want to tell you from my heart, thank you for doing what you do, because you are an example to every aspiring purpose-driven entrepreneur on what it looks like if you do the work. Not just if you talk it, but if you do the work, and if you use what you have to bless other people, that a God-sized dream attracts a dream team. And that's what we're seeing with what you've created. So I just want to, encourage you that, where God is taking you is bigger than where you are now. And that the levels that you've experienced thus far is really just groundbreaking levels that's going to attract a whole nother ecosystem from what you've already created. So, please continue to dive for your dreams, because you're creating a platform that so many people will dive from, right? Not just employees or vendors, but those who are unhoused. You're creating a platform that will actually allow them to dive into what's next. So God bless you for all that you do. And if you're on the fence about doing something big in the future, go big or go home. Go big or go home. Go big, go home. Thank you so much for being on the show.
It's been an honor. Thank you, Ira.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching this podcast. I hope it inspired you. Now, I need a huge favor. I need you, no matter what platform you're on, I need you to find that subscribe button, that like button. Leave us a great rating and a positive review. All of your comments, all of your reviews help us continue to make great content just for you.